Hi everyone, good afternoon. So I want to, as we've been a little bit interactive, and firstly, thank you everybody today. It's been pretty amazing to be up here and to be in the audience. So it's lovely to be up on stage. I would love to hear if you could raise your hand if you're concerned about microplastic. And okay, that's quite prominent. How many people think they know what to do about it? Okay, so there's a target for me. So by the end of today, I'm trying to give you a little bit of hope about what's going on, but also to give you a bit of an overview about what we can do in practical terms. So those of you that know, my name's Adam Root, and I'm the founder and CEO of Matter. So when I founded Matter, there was predicted to be around 5.25 trillion particles of plastic in our ocean. Today, we had that estimated at 171 trillion tons of microplastic in our oceans today. There are more pieces of plastic in our oceans than there are stars in our galaxy. And when you think about that number, it's pretty terrifying. So how do we break that down? What does it look like? And most of the things I'm talking about in microplastic and nanoplastics, we're talking about somewhere between 5 millimeters and 1 micron is kind of what I look at. It's my kind of window of what we do. And from 1 micron downwards, I would class that as nanopollution. So that's really, really small stuff. So what makes up microplastic and where does it come from? You guys are probably very aware of it. It's very prominent in our news today. We have found microplastic pretty much everywhere we've looked for it. So recently, it was shown to be that up to, I think it was last week, they talked about up to a Lego brick of plastic was in our brains. A terrifying fact. The idea that I'm rattling around the Lego brick is kind of a bit terrifying when I'm walking around. So when I started this journey, I really was looking at the numbers, and what we looked at was where the major sources of pollution came from, what they looked like, and then built a roadmap around that. So fundamentally, one of the largest sources of micropollution on the planet comes from fibers. It comes from synthetic fibers, so the manufacturing of our garments, the washing of our clothing, and we're seeing something like this comes out of your washing machine every month. This is made up of hair and grit and grime, and embedded in that is microplastics. Quite nice to wear a lab coat up here. I feel a little bit more at home. So the second thing on this list is if you've ever been into a city and at the end of the day you've got black up your nose, that is often carbon black, and that's from car tires. So car tires represent about 28% of the material that's on the surfaces of our ocean. So it's a pretty terrifying piece. And the reason why I'm concerned about this is for two pieces. So we actually had a fantastic talk earlier talking about carbon sequestration and what it looks like. Now, this is a video showing the ingestion of plastic entering the digestive tract of an animal like zooplankton and phytoplankton. You can see in this image the transfer of, they use a dye here because it's easy to see. You can actually see that transfer into the fatty tissue of the animal. Now, these guys they represent the largest sequestration of carbon on our planet, and they produce a majority of the world's oxygen through the carbon pump that's in our oceans. Our oceans are significantly underinvested in. However, they do represent a huge amount about how our climate works. Now, this gentleman is helping me change the legislation by producing studies like what he's done, where he looked at, he's one of the leading cardiologists in Europe. He showed that out of 250 people that had cardiac events, 60% of them had microplastic in their arteries, blocking arteries. There was a 4 times more likelihood of having a cardiac event by having the inhalation of microplastic, which might come from things like carpet or our clothing. If you have a tumble dryer, it's atomizing these particles. You're breathing it in within 15 minutes, it enters your blood. And it's showing the health implications. So this is what's driving the legislation in Europe. China, as an example, is incredibly interested about microplastic because it's driving the real need into looking at reducing fertility rates, which is a massive issue. So let's start talking about stop talking about the problems and start talking about solutions. So Matter as a business is solely here to solve this problem. So we believe the way that you solve this is through education, legislation, and research and development. R&D is how I get paid. It's how we do this by developing better technology for implementing solutions at scale. So we're looking at sustainability at scale. Education is not with school kids. The great news is that they probably know more about this issue than most of the politicians. So the next generation is coming forward. The challenge is that we need to educate business owners about what their footprint is and then how do they actually do something about it. We heard about the green premium earlier. I think this is a great example where we need to be a green discount. And the only way you do that is with better technology. And that's what Matter's doing. So this is my solution part. This is a hero of mine, Bill Madonna, and he talks about the design being the first signal of human intention. So what is our design principle? And really why is this microplastic so prominent in everywhere that we look? Well, what we have is the biological cycle. So you guys will probably remember this from school, from the nitrogen cycle. You start off with nutrients, they turn into plants. We are turning this into products, things like here it determines laundry detergent that naturally biodegrades and turns back into the nitrogen cycle. The only thing that gets added to this system is energy from the sun, which we've again just heard about, and that system is a completely circular system. Now what we're trying to do is replicate that in the technical sphere. So that's looking at how you can turn something like a laptop and you don't find iPhones in the gutter because they have value. They have gold, platinum, palladium, they have glass, and aluminium, they have all these materials that have value. Now the challenge is with things like plastic, it's very, very cheap, it's very lightweight, and it's very easy to move forward. So Matter as a business is the hard line between the two. We sit on the technical side, we stop the material leaching from the technical sphere into the biosphere, and we're really about that solution. So filtration has been around forever, and that's basically fundamentally what we do. But the challenge we have with filtration is a lot of it is really unsustainable at scale. So the world requires a high-efficient system at a low energy consumption. If you think about things like reverse osmosis, which is how you remove salt, or like desalination, so removing salt from water to make it drinkable, that process is, they are incredibly energy intensive, into the thousands of kilowatts. So Matter has developed technology that uses about 3% of existing energy use by having this really, really great technology for removing particles at a very small scale. So in that particle particular, we are 97% at 10 microns with this product. This is releasing on Monday. We've got a partnership with Bosch that if you have a washing machine, which is probably quite a few people in this room, you'll be able to wash your clothes without microplastic being released into the natural environment. Now you can plug this in as a retrofit, and the technology works something like this. So we have tiny fibers that capture onto a surface. They are then blasted off and agglomerated. They then stick together. So we have a big hole size, but the actual fluid sees it from a side angle. So the actual particle size is very, very small that we can capture. We can remove this material. Here it is working in real life. And what you can see is the material builds up on a layer. Then when it agglomerates, we can then extract that, and it can be removed, and it can be returned back to the circular economy. We've scaled this technology up to work with big commercial washing machines. We have an installation at the back end of this year in a number of different sites. And this, we start to talk about return on investment for businesses. So this is a 3-year ROI if you own a laundrette in hotels and looking at those different kind of processes. And this is what we're really, really excited about. Now, this is a 1 million litres of water per day solution, which we're releasing into textiles. So recently we signed a deal with Paradise Textiles. They produce about 50 million garments per year. This is removing microplastic from the production of clothing. And we're doing this at a very, very high throughput and rate. This, you can see here, is extracting the material. So if you're producing 10 tons of fabric a day, this is able to work in something about 1 meter in diameter, which is completely game-changing. This provides a return on investment in less than 3 years, and that's because we have a pre-screening technology. We're removing the material before it gets to the wastewater treatment plants that are involved in the dyeing process of the textiles factories. That's reducing the chemical costs, and it's reducing the amount of energy they require, which is about 70% of their costs are chemical and 30% are electricity. So this is me telling you good news that I'm working on it, and I'm working really hard on it. So it is coming. So this is 80% of efficiency for 3% of the energy, and that is really being proved on a case-by-case basis where we're looking at driving these costs down. This is a facility in Bangladesh we're working with. We've been able to provide a return on investment in less than 3 years. So all of this great stuff is coming forward. Let's think a little bit more about what you guys can do. So we are finding micropollution in our food, we're finding it in our water, and we're finding it in our air. So let's start to think about some of that kind of sustainability design principles in here. Fundamentally, plastic as a kind of category becomes unstable with heat and UV. So if you're microwaving your food into plastic, you're going to see a high leach rate. I would remove that. I have a little tiny baby. Plastic baby bottles terrify me when you're thinking about polypropylene and some of the materials they use. Avoid anything that's in a container that can be that will degrade, and you can normally tell this by the way that it works. Things like silicone is much more stable. When you're washing your clothes, less agitation equals less microplastic. We're seeing this move forward, but fundamentally, there are solutions coming to the market in the next couple of months. I need your help. I need you to write to your Minister of Parliament, your local congressman, and tell them you care about this. Tell them that you want something to happen, and we will do the rest. And finally, to think about the way that you get exposure to your water and your air pollution. So tumble dryers in a small space. You can normally find this if you're in your kitchen or your bathroom. If you look at any white surface, you can run your finger around the edge, look at the dirt. If it's little squiggly lines that are coloured, that's probably from your clothes. That might be from your carpet. So think about your exposure. And then finally, it would really be helpful if you buy some of our stuff. We have the latest microplastic filter. Feel free to come along and support us as it's coming. We're launching in 30 countries over the next couple of months. So please, when you come and see this, this is made by us. We're trying to do a good thing. It'd be great to have your support here. So that is a whistle-stop tour of all things. I only had a short period of time to cover so much information. But being in such a beautiful part of the world where water is in its abundance in the most pristine environments, we have a great opportunity to really do something here. So I want to finish by saying thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak to you today. We're just closing up a funding round. If you're interested in what we're doing, we are working at size and scale. It's an exciting time to be alive in this space. So do dig deep and keep working in the environmental movement, and we're a pleasure to be working together on this. Thank you.